If we take a look at the classroom of the elite communities, most communities have quite a low judgment on Horikita. Thanks to her low performance in most exams and a lot of expectations put on her shoulders thanks to her brother, Horikita failed to meet readers' expectations, causing a lot of readers to start hating her. However, what if I told you that Horikita is actually the victim of the story? Honestly, she had done nothing wrong, and all the hatred toward her is not something that she deserves. So, let's take a look at it one by one. One word that is used the most to mock Horikita is the word potential. This word originally came from Horikita Manabu, who believed that his sister could become something more as long as she could find her own path. Manabu said it in Volume 11 First Year Arc, and in the next volume, Horikita decides to say goodbye to her past self and start a new beginning. This volume is supposed to be the turning point for Horikita, and the next volume should have been a proper build-up for her character to actually show some change, but unfortunately, with the White Room students and Tsukishiro taking the main focus at the beginning of second year arc, Horikita's story was forced to be sidelined right after it started, giving it no chance to actually shine. Even after the uninhabited island exam, Horikita's development is a complete mess. Instead of becoming a caring leader who listens to her classmates and takes the best action for the sake of the class, Volume 5 of the second year arc made her a completely egoistic leader that clearly prioritizes her own feelings and even eats her own words to get rid of the traitor. Sakura's expulsion is clearly the most controversial part of Horikita's character, and clearly the worst debut to start her leadership arc. If we take a look at the trouble that came from that incident, you could say that Horikita is dumb, short-sighted, and a leader that cannot be trusted. In short, her choice to save Kushida is the complete opposite of what the readers expect her to be. This is where her potential started to get questioned. Did she really have the said potential? Or maybe she is just a useless and incapable person who let Ayanokoji clean all her mess. This volume is a valid reason to hate her, because it was pure luck that her class was not destroyed because of her action, but questioning her potential is a bit out of the question. For starters, she never claimed that she has that kind of potential. It was Manabu who made a claim, and Ayanokoji chose to believe it, so it's not her fault if she cannot live up to the expectation. As for her action to save Kushida and also her low performance in a lot of exams, this is a problem that I found with Horikita's character ever since the beginning. Believe it or not, Horikita is not written to be a main character, but as a sacrifice. If you read a lot of manga, sometimes you can see when the new villain appears, the villain will beat the previous villain, so the readers will know that the current villain is stronger than the previous one. This kind of action told us that the main character will have a harder challenge, so the story wouldn't become boring and unchallenging. There is also a case where the villain will beat a lot of middle-tier characters before the main character shows up, because that will hype the main character and make their entrance more dramatic. This kind of plot also happened in Classroom of the Elite. The main character is undoubtedly Ayanokoji, and the role to become a stepping stone is handed to someone who is capable enough, but not as good as the villain, and that role was handed to Horikita. Ever since the first volume, Horikita has been written as someone who tries to lead the class to make sure they can reach Class A, while Ayanokoji has been written to be someone who works in the shadow to make sure the plan goes as it was planned. However, this kind of setting has a major problem, which is the necessity to make Horikita look bad so Ayanokoji could shine. If there is no comparison, the great cannot be called great, and that is what happened with Horikita and Ayanokoji. If Horikita were a capable leader who could solve everything by herself, Ayanokoji would have no chance to be in action, and that would make him a failed protagonist. Since one of the best-selling points in this series is how great Ayanokoji is, Horikita needs to be sacrificed so Ayanokoji could always look great in the eyes of readers. Volume 12 is the best example of this, where Horikita lost without even putting a single scratch on Ichinose. Horikita lost a total of 8 lives, where Ichinose's lives remain intact with 9. However, let's try to imagine if Horikita actually managed to at least reduce Ichinose's lives to 5. If Ayanokoji defeats Ichinose who only has 5 remaining lives, that will be the same as beating a half-dead opponent, and that wouldn't look impressive at all. To achieve the most impressive ending for that exam, Ichinose needs to be at her best, and Horikita needs to achieve the worst. With the exam theme specifically made for Junose, Ayanokoji will look like Mount Everest when he manages to defeat her, and of course, Horikita needs to be sacrificed for that to happen. Simply speaking, if Horikita manages to reduce even one of Ichinose's lives in that exam, Ayanokoji wouldn't be able to or farm. This pattern where Horikita ended up failing just for Ayanokoji to fix her mistake happened from time to time, so it should be clear that Horikita is not written to be a main character, but just a convenience tool to make Ayanokoji look better. That's why when Ayanokoji decides to make Horikita the main character, what Horikita did doesn't feel impressive at all. There are at least 2 exams where Horikita was fully in charge. The first one happened in Volume 9 Second Year Arc, which is the most forgettable special exam in this series. And the second one happened in Volume 10 Second Year Arc, where Horikita was just following the flow of Ryuen and Ichinose, and just managed to avoid the last position. Horikita plays fair and square, but even if she manages to win, it just feels unremarkable compared to Ayanokoji. It might be too fast to judge Horikita with just a few exams to develop herself, but there is only 1 year left in their high school, so Horikita needs to catch up in a short amount of time. However, that is exactly the problem with Horikita's development as the leader. She rarely has any chance to fight by herself because Ayanokoji keeps stealing the spotlight, but now she is suddenly thrown into a battle where she has no idea what to do. After the whole 2 years of being a doormat for Ayanokoji, Horikita is now forced to become the main character. It's honestly unfair for her, and her low performance is understandable, and that's why she didn't deserve the hatred. Her development as a leader is a complete mess, so a high expectation from the readers and Ayanokoji would only kill her reputation unless she does something impressive, which I didn't think would happen soon. In Volume 7 Second Year Arc Side Story, there is a dream from Horikita that I found quite interesting. In her dream, Horikita is placed in the same class as her brother, and Manabu leads the class while Horikita stands beside him, supporting him. This is just a dream, so there's no need to take it seriously. But if we remember what happened in the first volume, Horikita's entire motivation always revolves around her brother. She wanted her brother to acknowledge her, and she believed reaching Class A would give her the recognition. However, Horikita personally never really wanted to become the leader. She was only following in her brother's footsteps, and since her brother was the class leader, she chose to also become one, and since no one in the class was willing to take that position, that role eventually fell into her hand. However, what if there is someone else in class that is more capable than Horikita and also willing to lead the class, and what will Horikita do with the class leader position? This question is important because back in Volume 10 Second Year Arc, Horikita said she is willing to hand over the leader role to someone more capable than her, and in Volume 12, she admitted that the best candidates for the exam are Ayanokoji and Koenji. Horikita admits that she is not the best leader possible for the class, and she is actually willing to step down. If that's really the case, Horikita's dream could have another meaning, which is that her deepest desire is not to become a leader, but simply to support her brother. That means if Ayanokoji is willing to lead the class, Horikita will eventually step down and support him. This is another problem with Horikita's character. She realizes she is a side character, but is forced to become the main one. She constantly put herself lower than Ayanokoji and wanted his acknowledgement as the replacement of her brother. Even until the newest volume, every important plot involving Horikita is always about her ties with Ayanokoji. From how she is written in the story, she is not written as a standalone character, but as a support or a helper of Ayanokoji. She made him smile, she met his father, and eventually she will learn about Ayanokoji's past. Horikita was written to save Ayanokoji, and defeating him is simply part of it. Horikita is a balanced all-rounder character, so it's just natural that she falls behind a specialist like Ryuen, who only wants to defeat Ayanokoji. With how Horikita was written up to the newest volume, she might be having the highest chance to defeat Ayanokoji, but not because she is strong, but just because the narrative supports that kind of ending. As a person, she lacks the actual capability to even stand with the other class leader. This is the most worrying part of this series, because if it keeps continuing without Horikita making actual progress, she will end up defeating him with the power of friendship, and I don't even want to imagine how the readers will react to it. The ending of this series is now heavily tied with Horikita whether she wants it or not. She will be blamed if she fails, and a lot of readers will still be dissatisfied even if she wins, because her current condition simply makes her incapable of reaching the happy ending. With that in mind, the next few volumes will be really important to restore Horikita's reputation. Even if it's rushed or forced, Kinugasa needs to make Horikita grow fast so she can catch up with Ayanokoji. Either she manages to gain more allies or she discovers Ayanokoji's weakness. That kind of development is way better compared to making her still hoping for him. Even if it happens, there will always be someone who will hate Horikita, but that is an issue for the future. No matter if you like it or not, let's just hope for the best for the classroom of the elite ending.